Oh, and
visiting
beautiful.
my 15-month-old grandson. So,
It has been beautiful.
It's been perfect weather.
it's a little on the muggy side here.
That's the problem with leaving Wisconsin during the summer. You get
That's
like the best weather.
Yeah.
God.
Well,
Which part of South Carolina? Charleston?
no, we're in Columbia,
Columbia?
which is about, what, 90 miles from Charleston inland.
Yeah.
We're supposed to get rain starting Thursday through Sunday, probably a little bit of an offshoot, one offshoot that's coming up from Gulf of Mexico, and then Lord knows what the other two that are starting to percolate out in the Atlantic will be doing. So
Yeah.
Hey, Al, you look like the Grinch a little bit right now. You got the light bulb that's above your head.
I would note that the meeting is in broadcast mode.
That's okay.
All right. Just about a minute and I'll get things rolling for us. I'm unaware of any expected absences. Chris, do you know of any?
Nope.
Okay.
Nobody contacted me. If anybody hears my wife with any outbursts in the background, she found 7 or 8 little videotapes of our kids when they were little. So if you hear her in the background, that's what she's reacting to. Hopefully it won't be, but she knows that we're starting our meeting.
Oh, joy. Little children, even on video, bring you joy.
Yeah, well, when they're big children, adults now, that they go back to their, when they're, 5 and 6 years old, that big difference. They actually were much better behaved, I think, back then. At least they listened better, I think, at that point. But nah, I'm kidding. My kids are great.
So speaking of starting the
memory
meeting,
bias, Chris.
Could be.
it is 6 o'clock. I do see we have a quorum of members. So before I turn over to Chris to start the meeting, one quick note that I did, Chris was not in attendance at our last meeting. I did mention to him the question that was posed by someone from the public about recording the meeting. Chris did ask me to begin recording the CDA meetings as long as we're in this Zoom non-in-person arrangement, because frankly, it's so easy to do. So what I have done is initiated the recording, which is going to the cloud for the Zoom meeting, and simultaneously it's broadcasting on the Village's YouTube channel live, which then places the recording straight to our YouTube channel. So it's really simple for staff to make arrangements to have those archived there on YouTube. When we do leave and go back to the in-person world, I mean, to be honest, I have a feeling we're going to try to find a way to use Zoom to our advantage as well. But I just can't say that will be as easy as this is right now. So stay tuned for that. But in the meantime, I expect for quite a while we'll be meeting in this fashion, and while we do, we'll be recording it and making it available. So you can thank the village president, at least on my screen to the far right, for giving staff instruction to do that. Happy to do that. The usual details then for the meeting function here. Everybody should, to the extent that they can, remain on mute. And then when you care to speak, go on mute. And also for purposes of discussion on items, Chris might call on you to raise your hand like this, and then he'll call on you for discussion. And then we'll still, though, do votes by roll call for everything that requires a vote. So with that, Chris, I'll turn it over to you to kick off the meeting.
Okay, I will call this Community Development Authority meeting for August 18, 2020 to order. Todd, do you want to take roll call?
I shall. Kristen Runge.
Here.
Jeff Tews,
Present.
Ann Lewandowski,
Present.
Al Dassow. Al? We can't hear you, sir. I will note for the record that Al Dassow is present. David Kennedy,
Here.
Jeff Smith, and Chris Zellner.
Here, thank you. First, we have our minutes. Do we have anybody who has any motions for approving the minutes at this point?
I move to approve the minutes.
Motion by Kristen Runge to approve the minutes.
Second,
Second, was that Dave?
David.
David, second by David. Through roll call vote, Todd?
Okay, backwards to the prior version. Chris Zellner,
Yes.
David Kennedy,
Yes.
Al Dassow. Thumbs up if you're a yes vote, Al. Okay, for the record, Al is yes. Ann Lewandowski,
Yes, to approve.
Jeff Tews,
Yes.
and Kristen Runge.
Yes.
Okay, motion passes.
Okay, next we've got public comment. Is there anybody, I think we have one attendee. Anybody open to making public comments at this time?
So if any, I see one attendee, if anybody cares to make a comment on an item either on or off the agenda, we give 2 minutes. Raise your hand in the Zoom panel and we'll bring you in. Our one attendee is not jumping on the opportunity, Chris. Oh, Chris is our attendee as well.
All right, then we're going to move on from that and go right to new business update on 7525 policy progress and discussion on prioritization of additional housing task force recommendations. Todd, go ahead.
I think what I'd like to do, particularly for the sake of, I know you guys have your packets there, but I'm going to share the screen so people who are possibly watching or watching the recording will see the information here. Okay, what do you see? You see, looks like the YouTube. All right, there we go. Can I see a thumbs up or something? Do you see the agenda? Okay, thank you. All right. So as I always meet with Chris and talk about agenda preparation, and I think one thing that struck us as we start to talk about the additional tasks within the Housing Task Force set of recommendations is that we really haven't done a good job for you, for the CDA, and for the public in general of going over what has been accomplished. And when I sat down to do the work of kind of documenting what we're doing or what's in the plans or what might be on hold for legitimate reasons, it strikes me that in fact there's a lot of activity going on. I'm not going to admit that we've solved every situation and stunned the entire world with our accomplishments, but we're working on it. And I'm not terribly disappointed on progress that we're trying to make to this point. There'll always be people who wish we're going more quickly, but I think when we all sit back and take a peek at what we're doing, what we've done thus far, I think we should have something to be proud of. So I like to walk through these point by point and take time on each one to see if there's any questions or discussion or other desires on a part of the CDA, if we could. So to start off, there's 3 of the recommendations from the task force that the village board has actually authorized staff to put forward to the UW as part of their university. And Kristen is an expert on this because she actually is one of the educators involved in, or staff people involved in the UW University program. But the board authorized staff to submit a proposal for this program to assist us with a number of tasks that relates to racial justice, social justice, equity, and inclusion in our community. So as I look at the list of recommendations from the task force, I see some items that I think are relatable to those to that mission of our proposal. One being recognizing the needs of seniors in our community, especially when it comes to housing. So I see, I haven't really discussed this with Kristen in any depth, but I see the UW being able to take the survey work that we did under the housing task force in relation to housing, and actually modify that to particularly address seniors in our community, to understand and identify their specific needs and wishes and wants. And then from there, essentially do a smaller version of a housing report specific to the needs of seniors. And I guess I would ask Kristen, do you see that as a viable project that University could do a good job with for us?
I do. Yeah, I do. Yeah, there are several people involved with the university here that would probably take that on.
Okay, so that along with goals number, scrolling down, 10 and 10 and 11, which really it relates to research and then compiling information that we can then provide as a resource for home ownership and home buying resources. And in relation to that is 11, which suggests that the village work to put together some seminars and outreach to increase awareness and inform potential home buyers of publicly available programs. So those definitely go hand in hand. And I see the UW having a lot of sort of fingers into that world of public programs, and would probably be a rather easy goal for them to achieve for us. So I bundled these 3 recommendations under a project for University. So let me pause there and get feedback on that approach to these 3 items.
So if you have comments for anybody, please raise your hand and I'll call on you.
So I'll stop the share while we do that.
Jeff Tews.
Wonder, Kristen, is there, because the one that, and Todd, I had circled those as ones I wanted to raise as ones I thought were very positive for us. I wondered about whether the cataloging and providing information on resources, TIF, the other things. Kristen, is that something that is in this discussion, or do you think that's something that the village has to do outside of any assistance from the UW?
So I think the question would be about who would the audience be for a catalog like that. The staff we have at the village level could cite chapter and verse of when TIF works, when TIF doesn't work, and the other various programs. So some assistance from, say, DIPLA, the Department of Planning and Landscape Architecture, in creating a lay booklet of that, or a booklet for a committee, or I would certainly think would be appropriate, or an appropriate graduate student activity. I might invite Todd in to comment on kind of what.
Well, you're talking about recommendation 4, I think, Jeff, is that right? And that recommendation is that the village work with developers and lenders to pursue a variety of housing loan credits, including TIF financing, low-income housing tax credits, and assistance from federal home loan bank. Is that right?
Well, no, it started that's involved, but it also started with trying to look for the number you're referencing, because I have just notes on my pad. Creating a creating an index and a catalog of public available programs.
Like for potential homeowners?
For potential homeowners, yeah.
So Todd and I actually had a conversation about that. There are a number of existing sources that we can link to on the website for the village that does catalog that. And then there are some programs, UW Extension runs a program for first-time home buyers. There's one called Rent Smart that is geared towards people who may have had evictions in the past, the class that they take and they get certified for. So there are a number of kind of publicly available programs like that that we could catalog and put on
I mean,
the website.
Yeah, I mean, it'd be extremely easy to put
Yeah.
up a page under our website and put a bunch of links to a bunch of organizations. That, in fact, we have a list of some programs already. We can do that. I guess my thought was, if we're going to partner with the UW, this looked like an approach to get some support to take it to
Mhm.
the next level, and even probably to customize the design in which that information is conveyed via our website, so it's easy to digest.
Sure.
So if the CDA wants to put staff to task on it, we can definitely do something. It won't take long, but I don't think it would be. I don't think we have the time at the moment to turn into something that it could be in terms of its robustness.
Sure.
So I guess that's my only.
And I'll just go back to correct a misunderstanding because I was looking at the wrong number. I don't think examining the TIF and all the other types of programs, and again, I'm amateur at this, but it seems like that's a burden we ought to put on developers. And I don't know quite how much of that, all those 4 or 5 different presentations, Kristen, that we had during the Housing Authority and the task force and the details around those. That seems to me that ought to be something that perhaps the village is aware of and we know, so we can test it, but it ought to be something that a developer would bring to the table.
So I'm willing to work with you here, Jeff. You're jumping to number 4, but I'm going to go there with you.
Okay.
Okay, I'm going to bring the screen back up.
I didn't bring it up, by the way, to be supportive of number 4. I
Oh.
brought it up to be supportive of finding a way to get potential home buyers aware of funding available to them.
Okay. Although it feels to me like you're really hovering into 4 in terms of suggesting that we sort of lean on the developers to bring programs to us, which actually I would say, Jeff, is exactly what Cohen Esri did and the village supported them with. So that's the 50 unit, 9% LIHTC project
Right.
Next to McDonald's.
Right.
They pursued LIHTC on their own fruition. We did all we could to demonstrate support. They also then wanted to pursue the Federal Home Loan Bank program, I believe, and they asked the village for a letter. And Jason Valerius is on. He actually crafted the letter on behalf of the village to indicate conditions that were such that the village was supportive of seeing redevelopment on the site. You know, underutilization, some aspect of vacancy within the structures, et cetera, et cetera. At the request of Cohen Esri, we supplied that letter so they could then pursue the Federal Home Loan Bank program. And I think that's a step we would take with any developer that's wanting our help to receive support from another agency.
Okay.
So to your point, with Cohen Esri as an example, we did just what you were hoping for.
Okay.
But
And
maybe
so-
there's other angles that you'd like us to talk about.
No, I just wondered, is there any value in having us include that in recommendations? Does that help in any way with Plan Commission or any of the other things going for us to document that we think that's a positive thing?
So I understand, right? You're asking, as a development project comes along, the village should be recommending programs to developers? or the other way around?
The other way around, just what you
Okay.
described that happened with co-nestry.
Okay. I guess I'm totally on board with that. And I would see us doing that. And I think too, the work of the task force and the work of the CDA here is generating for us as staff hypersensitivity, frankly, to the programs and the interest of the village policymakers to seeing that we assist in any way we can. So, so I think Jeff, we will in fact take those steps as we progress with future projects.
Okay, all right, thank you.
And which is essentially kind of the answer I shared, but maybe I can word it differently in the future on our answer to item 4 here. That's how I would refer to that as actively implemented. That your staff is doing that and convening that. And I would add, to finish out this particular item, that we have connected with other developers. In fact, just 2 hours ago, Kristen and I were standing in the grass camp project that Madison Development Corp just is open for occupancy within the past several weeks. And we toured that project, saw what they're doing, learned about some of their needs, some of the complexities of their projects, and what their entitlement process needs to be. And we're getting a sense for their interest in potential development here. Similar to Habitat for Humanity of Dane County, which has been talking to the village for, well, years, frankly, with wanting interest in being a participant in a project. So we're engaging in and encouraging those conversations here.
Others that have questions for Todd with regards to what he just brought up?
Yeah, I guess number 4.
I have one question, Todd, for you actually, with university.
Okay.
We talked about this last night at the village board meeting. Is that something that we are going to be including the CDA in? Are they going to be doing any work around the CDA with the CDA? That didn't really come up. It would seem to make sense that that would be included together.
It would, and Kristen can maybe help out with the way in which these proposals occur. As I understand it, a community will put together an initial, essentially rough sketch of ideas, maybe some goals. And then the first phase of our engagement with the UW, if they select us, will be to help put framework around those goals to figure out how best the university can align with the village. And I think it's very reasonable to think that for these 3, we would see some CDA engagement from the UW. Kristen?
Yeah, and then what happens is the University Alliance works with courses on campus, professors and other organizations or units, and matches a group of researchers or students or whatever that unit looks like to the specific project. And during the course of the university year, that particular group works to address some of the needs or basically make plans for addressing some of the needs that have been identified in whatever the proposal has been.
And does that typically involve, presentations in front of public bodies like the CDA? And okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Or work sessions with?
And it's not so much an ongoing thing, it'll happen over the course of the year. There'll be a month of work, there will be a report out, there might be another month of work. So it's not, they won't be showing up at every meeting. They, the program, by the time we get accepted and we've sketched out the parameters, the program, the idea of what's going to happen is pretty set so that those professors and those students can go and do the work that they need to do. So yeah, they'll be talking with us. We tend to, with University Alliance, rely a lot on staff because you can pick up the phone and get staff members.
Okay.
It's been I'm on the University Alliance board. I'm underselling it a little bit here. Communities have been very pleased with what they've gotten when they've worked with University Alliance.
The other thing I'll mention for the sake of the CDA members, so that you're aware, this requires an investment of the village, and the board voted to support that investment yesterday. We're in our proposal, we've committed a $20,000 investment, 10,000 over 2 years. So to the extent that we can say we're putting a little money where our mouth is, I think is what we're accomplishing a bit.
Go ahead, Ann.
Sorry, I lost how to raise my hand. So thanks, Todd, for letting us know the cost was one of my main questions. One of the other questions that I have is, have staff touch base with like the tenant resource center that may already have a collection of this information? Or are we really just hoping that we get accepted by university and are leaving that for them?
My approach here is, if we're accepted, we'll leave it to them and enjoy the benefit of their effort on our behalf. If we're not accepted, we will eagerly go and complete that, a lot of that work.
Okay, so what I'm hearing you say, just to kind of rephrase, is that for our prioritization, any of the items that are pending UW partnership should not be prioritized by us because they've already been prioritized by the village board, who have put funding behind it, and we're waiting for the response from UW.
Well, I guess I would say it remains important for the CDA, hopefully, to find priority in these. Maybe I'm not understanding what you're asking. The board's paving the way for the CDA to receive resources to help it accomplish these 3 goals. I don't see the board necessarily saying, okay, we're taking ownership of these 3 things.
No, but I'm asking, if I'm voting to prioritize something, it sounds like that has another track that may possibly be pursued independent of what current resources we might have. And so I'm trying to understand, if we're voting to prioritize tonight, how best to structure my vote for prioritization, right? So if this is something that already has a separate track that the village board wonderfully has already put resources behind, and we're waiting for that, in my own opinion, we should defer those until a later point to revisit once we know whether or not we're accepted in university, if that makes sense.
Fair enough. Does the CDA get to the point where we lay out priority 1, 2, and 3 tonight? I think in talking with Chris, our goal was to really give a really good update on where exactly we're at on all these things, and then see how the CDA feels. Frankly, maybe after our discussion tonight, the CDA says, okay, I'm pretty comfortable with the fact that we're doing stuff. Keep on going, or change directions on 3 and 8. But I guess we'll see.
Okay, that's fine. I'm just trying to understand what outcome we're expecting from tonight.
Okay. Hopefully maybe that didn't clarify anything, actually.
No, that was helpful. Thank you.
All right.
So I feel like, Al, can we hear you yet? Do we know?
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. You're on.
I've hit every possible button on my laptop trying to get it to work.
Well, you hit one of them, so try to remember which one it was for the next time as we go through. Do you have any comments right now?
At this point, I don't. I was actually kind of focusing on getting the microphone to work, so I've been
Fair enough.
half listening, half working on the laptop.
Okay. All right, Todd, let's move on.
All right. Let me just ask on the university participation 1, 11, and 12. I think those are the numbers. Are there any other questions? If not, or it's 1, 10, and 11. If not, Chris, could you sort of do a thumbs up or thumbs down for me, just so I can get from a staff side, get a sense that we're going in the right direction?
Well, you can ask, I guess, at this point. What? Go ahead. I don't know why I need to ask it. So you're
All
asking.
right. Okay. I see thumbs up. All right. Thank you.
Okay.
Let me go back to screen share. I'm guessing, Jason, your thumb was up too, but your vote doesn't count.
Thanks for pointing that out.
Okay, we're going to jump right into one of those that I think will get a some good conversation going between all of us. So the housing task force recommendation, 160 units priced at target households making 80 to 100% of area median income to be constructed within the next 5 years. So, and this can all be discussed. I'm going to lay it out there, and then we can beat it up. All right. So, in looking at this, and I chatted with Kristen a little bit a couple of weeks ago as I was talking about trying to pull this table together, and the suggestion was, well, let's get very specific with Veridian about what they see as the product entering the market during the time frame that we suggest here in this particular goal. So I went straight to Chris Ellers, who's the key contact we have with Veridian, and asked him, I gave him this language under number 2 and said, to what extent do you believe your development achieves this? He asked a couple of clarifying questions, I think relating to assumptions. Kristen helped me answer those for Chris. And from that discussion, he gave this answer. And it's right there in front of you. I'm not going to read you guys. I don't want to insult you like that. So there is his description, which in the end identifies that his first phase of 79 lots is on track to target entry level price points in the high 200s to low 300s. He identifies that based on the assumptions, Veridian should deliver between 30 to 40 houses per year starting in 2021 that are below the 425, which is the point at below 100% that I think they identify. So Kristen, do you want to take a first stab at perhaps clarifying some of the assumptions, or should we jump right into it?
Yeah, so some of the assumptions about why we chose Wanakee versus Dane County.
No,
Okay.
to specify the assumptions that that Chris Ellers was using, or maybe that's not necessary, being that they're all laid out here.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, I'm not so, and I'm going to confess I was pulling up the census data so I can have the latest data.
Oh, all right.
We were chatting. Sorry.
Well, let's jump into it. What questions do you guys have about? I know I'm not supposed to say you guys. I was told I'm supposed to say y'all. That's going to take some time for me to get used to, but without a Southern accent. What questions do you all have on this item?
Okay, raise your hand if you have a question on this item.
Maybe that's easier.
So raising your hand means on the screen actually for everybody, so then it makes it easy. Jason Valerius, go ahead.
I would point out the difference between household income and family income, where family income is only counting those households that have at least 2 people, and household income includes all the single households. Household income is lower than family income. So I think our starting point for identifying the median might be too high here based on that distinction.
Okay. Thank you. Any others that would like to speak, raise your hand. Jeff Tews?
Well, mine is a question. I've been following the discussion at the Plan Commission and what may happen following that discussion with the comprehensive plan, and wondering whether is there value in us even worrying about specific numbers in this manner? And if there is, I mean, because we spend a lot of time on it on the Housing Task Force, but I'm just wondering whether Todd or Chris or Kristen could comment about what discussion has happened since our last meeting relative to this subject of percentages or numbers. If you could clarify that for me, it would help me understand my priority.
So Jeff, are you switching a little bit to the 75-25 issue?
Well, I'm thinking of, well, I think all of the ones that relate to a percentage or a number, I think all kind of fall into my question category.
Okay. Kristen, do you want to
Yeah,
take
so
a stab at that?
I'll start by going back to Jason's question. So the census defines a household as all individuals living within a dwelling, related or unrelated. So if it's me and a roommate, it's our combined income. If it's me and my spouse, it's our combined income. If it's me and my dependent children who are not employed, it's our combined income. So a household can vary according to composition. They do distinguish between household income, all of the adults, all of the earners within a particular address, and family income. And they specify within family, if it's a married parent family, if it's a single, two single adults raising children together. So they do kind of accommodate these different things. If we're thinking of a single person household, which is a strong majority, or not a strong majority, a strong proportion of households in the US, then we're considering a very, very kind of different income. That's difficult to compare a one-person household to a four-person household. In Waunakee, our predominant household type is 2 or more adults living together. And so that income is a little higher in Waunakee based on the composition of the households that we have. We don't have as many single adults living here. So that's household income. We have, if you look in the housing report somewhere, we break out household income, which was, I think, like $98,000 at the time we put the report together. But then family income, 2 married parents together, was over $125,000 at the time the report was together. So that would be the distinction between 2 adults living together, earning and raising children, versus a non-married household. That was a lot higher than I expected. Jeff, what was your question again?
My question is around, because we spent so much time on this topic in the Housing Task Force, and if the discussions that have just taken place with the Plan Commission and their recommendation to go forward with eliminating the percentage or to continue to evaluate that percentage is going to affect all of these. So I guess I'm looking, is the number and the income levels, is that still within our discussion, or has that been, I got the sense that perhaps that's taken out of our hands at this point, and I would hate to go through the Housing Task Force struggles again to have us be told, well, gosh, the new comprehensive plan is going to take care of that, and Plan Commission's already decided a different decision. So I know I'm not jumping to the prioritization, but I don't, again, I don't want us to spend a lot of time on prioritization if it's not of any value.
So with regards to the income versus the 75-25 rule, which are the 2 things that the Plan Commission talked about when it was at the last Plan Commission meeting this month. The median income in Waunakee has increased, as has all of Dane County's median income up until the pandemic. We were experiencing some extraordinarily good times from an employment perspective, and that as I'm preaching to the choir, as you know, employment rates are really low and wages are being driven up as a result prior to the pandemic. And so we were seeing for the first time real increases in income across all job categories, but particularly at the $10 to $15 to $20 an hour job group, which had remained largely stagnant for quite a while now. So we did have that discussion. When we go back to the original charge to the Housing Task Force, it was to look at conditions within the village. And so when we made the decision of whose median income are we looking at? Like, how is that being defined? Where is the geographic boundaries for that? What we had settled on was, because the charge was to the village, to look at what was happening in the village, understand who is in the village now, We decided as a task force, or the task force decided to compare that to who has been here historically. We went back to 2000 and made those two comparisons, but we were looking just at that 53597 zip code within Dane County. So we weren't considering all of Dane County incomes. We were in that 53597 zip code is actually, exceeds the boundaries of the village itself. But that's, kind of the boundary we set. It's not all of the school district, but it was a significant portion of the school district. It felt more like what the community might define itself. So we did have that conversation. Those numbers that we used were 2017 census numbers. We've got the 2019 community census that's been reported. And again, we saw that the income across Dane County, median incomes rose. Across in Wanakee, that certainly was pretty significant as well. The 2020 census, which we're filling out now, we'll have those numbers probably this spring or next summer. And I'm not an economist, but I would expect, given what we're experiencing now, that we're going to see those numbers shrink back possibly quite a bit across all of Wisconsin. And some of our gains, we know that some of our gains will be erased that we'd experienced between 2017 and 2019. So that's kind of the process that we decided, and the conversation, if you tuned into the Plan Commission, really focused on Veridian accounting for the numbers and the price points that they had targeted in their original proposal versus what is coming online right now. And I don't want to overinterpret what Chris said, but it sounded like they were still going to be in that range. And I feel I'm very nervous saying that because Chris is not here to clarify or to speak to that. So I don't want to put words in his mouth. But I believe that in the email you sent, Todd, that he said 79 homes in that first phase will be priced in the upper 200s, lower 300s. If I'm recalling correctly to that email that he sent to you that was forwarded on to us. And when I look at the Housing Task Force report, I think it's page 22, we have the HUD data there, and we said that 241,000 and 308,000 were both pretty sensitive price points for us as a village. And for 241,000, that was the upper limit for HUD for a household of 4 earning 80% of area median income, which in 27 was $78,000. Right now, that's slightly, it's more like $82,000, $83,000, if I recall correctly, and I might not be correct on that because I'm going from memory. And 120 household of 2 earning adults earning 100% of area median income, which was $98K at the time of the report. A house priced at $308, according to HUD, would be considered affordable for a household of 4, for 2 adults, 2 children living in the household. So I think that we're somewhat close to that range, but I'm saying that with a big question mark because I'm not Chris, and I am reaching into memory for the email that I read about an hour ago. So
I am Chris.
Sorry.
That's a different one. But Jason, I know Jason is here too. With regards to, Jeff, I don't know if you're getting your question answered, which is regarding basically the CDA charge versus what the Plan Commission is doing, and you don't want to overlap. Is that accurate what you're asking?
Yeah.
Or do the work and then have the Plan Commission change whatever the work is? Is that?
And is there some understanding about what with the Plan Commission now and the discussion that I only have from the newspaper article because I wasn't at the meeting, but what is our authority relative to that? And is this inbounds for us to be talking about numbers? Because several of these recommendations, 3 of them, I believe, talk about number of units. And is that even in our realm, given the discussions that are happening and
well, maybe to be a little more blunt about what I'm doing here, this is a report out. And I guess what I'm asking for you to do is to confirm whether you're supporting the assumptions. If so, the indication that they're looking to do 79 lots in the first phase, meeting this criteria, is progress on achieving 160 units within the next 5 years. So as long as you agree with those assumptions, I'm not asking you to do anything except acknowledge progress in this area. So that I think that's what I'm doing here.
Okay, okay, I get that, Todd. That's different than what I thought we were doing, was prioritizing our recommendations.
Frankly, that may actually not be the best language to use on our agenda, because it's a little misleading, because my goal really was to give you a very clear update on what is happening in regards to the task force recommendations, which may pull some things to rise to the surface that we need to do more work on, and then have the CDA point us in directions.
Okay, so is there anybody who's not comfortable? Ann just popped her head up. So I don't think it's the uncomfortable. I think you have a question.
No, I appreciate Kristen's clarification and referral back to the HUD numbers that the Housing Task Force used. I think I'm going to use an Aldassa comment that maybe we should talk about and refresh and vote on definitions of what affordable means. I am a little bit uncomfortable with allowing developers to tell us what they think affordable is for that. So I think that that's something that internally we should look at and refer back to and have a clear definition that we can routinely use, so that there's no confusion for anybody, whether it's the public, whether it's me as a commission member, or whether it's a developer coming in and telling us this is affordable at these different price points. Understandably, that will fluctuate a little bit year in and year out, but in order to track this very effectively, I think that we should have a more clear definition on that.
So
Okay.
Can I ask a clarifying question?
Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm probably derailing the discussion. So when you say affordable, Ann, are you looking for a house priced at X is affordable?
So this is, to me, affordable is defined within the parameters or number 2, right? So it says 80 to 100% of the area median income. And so if we're going to use Wanakee, that's fine. I do have a little bit of a challenge with that, particularly since some of the CDA work from Chris's perspective, and I think also Jeff's perspective, is to allow Wanakee to open to people who work here and may not be making that median income that many of us may be closer to or over. And so I tend to think that we need to use the county number so that we are not overestimating or overreaching and creating a gap that Wanakee then needs to fill if we go over the area median income.
Yeah, one of the challenges we have in using a county number without having a demographer at the table is that a significant proportion of our county population is students. And those census numbers that we look at to define like what is median income include student populations, because the census is taken while they're resident. So if you want to use a county, there are a lot of reasons. There are a lot of reasons that we use that at the county level that we don't typically use that when we get to the municipal level.
So here's my challenge, and here's the situation that I absolutely want to avoid, is that HUD will generate numbers, right? You refer to them within the Housing Task Force that said, this is what we define as 80% of the area median income, whatever that is. So when developers come to us with item number 3, I believe, when they say, hey, we're pursuing these different revenue opportunities, these different tax credits, that may be based on a certain percentage of income, right? And so if that's based on the HUD number, which may be based on the county number rather than our Wanakee specifically, and we have, say, 100,000 as the Dane County income, And then we are saying we want it to be eligible to everyone at 120,000 rather than just 100. That creates a gap of another 25,000 within that income bracket that HUD will not support. And then we as Wanakee are saying we want to do that. And I imagine we will be on the hook for that amount of money to support those people, or the application will be turned down because the income brackets are incorrect. So that's my concern.
So, yeah, so what you and I and the committee and the Plan Commission, how we define that doesn't matter. HUD will use their definition of, HUD will decide, WIDA will decide, the Federal Home Loan Bank of Wisconsin or out of Chicago will decide what they identify and consider the appropriate geographic catchment area for whatever application is being put in. So when they looked at Cohen Esri's application, Cohen Esri was attracted to us because we signaled that we want some affordable housing. And we said, here's how we're envisioning affordable housing through this document and so through some other documents. And then when they did the WIDA application, WIDA never looks at that report. They look at census data, they look at Department of Administration data, they decide what the catchment area is. So to a certain extent, I mean, we can go through that exercise and we can talk about it, but to a certain extent, when those applications go in, it doesn't really matter what we think, because they have their own definitions and their own formulas.
Okay, so
Yeah.
I hear what Ann's requesting, and Al in the past with regards to this definition quote of affordable housing. I think what our goal is for tonight first is, as Todd has laid out, if you look at the grid that he laid out, I think he's trying to show we're moving in different areas, that they're just not stagnant or stopped for the most part here. And for us, we need to see where we're at with each of those, and we need to prioritize where we probably need to focus our attention to right now. Todd, am I saying that correctly? I think that's the goal.
Yeah, except Ann is saying that the numbers that Veridian is showing might not be an accurate number in terms of our progress on 160. Because in fact, the annual family income ought to be lower. So
Yeah, so if it's, so just to chime in, if it's 308 according to the number identified in the Housing Stat Task Force, or 241, we're actually not moving that number at all at a 241 if the first purchase price is high 200s, right? And so again, it gets back to a definition. If we're going to accept that the income has increased enough that a high 200 does in fact meet that 80% of AMI that we're looking for, then I'm willing to accept and approve that we are in fact making progress on number 2. If we refer back and say, no, in fact, we may be making progress in the 80 to 100% or the 90 to 100% when we cap off at 308, then in fact, some of these 79 lots may in fact meet that criteria. So I'm uncomfortable saying yes or no to this entire range at this point.
Okay.
And maybe what, so this is helpful. It's helpful to identify areas where we might have disagreement, because that allows staff to hone in on those particular areas, and therefore we see a good point of research and then discussion for our next CDA meeting on that specific topic.
Al, go ahead.
So I just want to clarify, from my perspective, I like to be in control versus being controlled, which means I like to go out and find, we come up with what we'd like to have and then find ways to get it done versus being told. So from my perspective, if we see a need, whatever affordable housing is, that we may not be able to define it with exact precision, but we define it such that it meets certain needs within the village. whether that's housing for workforce, whether it's housing for seniors, whether it's housing for the local convenience store employees. And I know we're picking on Veridian here, and it's referenced in number 2, and good for them. They're 79 lots and they're working on that. What's the rest of the subdivision like? What are the plans for the rest of the subdivision? And are there any other subdivisions coming online? And also, how much control does the village have over defining what goes into that subdivision?
Jason, I think that's one you're going to want to jump in on.
So you don't have a very good stick for, and when I say stick, I mean stick versus carrot. You don't have a very good stick for forcing affordability. You have the power of persuasion to some extent by indicating what is desired and indicating where the smooth path is to approvals and to working with the village. As I've been listening to the conversation, I hope this is helpful. I'd like to attempt to offer my perspective on the role of the CDA here, and maybe this helps to orient you a bit. My perspective is that the CDA's main role is not in policy setting, but in implementation of figuring out how to get some of these goals achieved and to create tools and set the very detailed policies within funding tools. For example, a TIF policy on when and how TIF would be used to support housing projects, I think is exactly the kind of thing that the CDA should be doing. Or setting up a partnership with a land trust, for example. It's the CDA that I think should be at the table trying to figure that stuff out, in my opinion. I recognize and understand some frustration, kind of picking up on Jeff's comments about, well, we're talking about all these policies, but then we're forwarding them on to Plan Commission and they're dawdling with them. And then from there, they still have to go on to the council, to the village board, and we don't know what's going to happen there. And I guess I would like to see the CDA transition from this initial phase of being involved in big picture policy setting and hopefully be able to move on pretty soon to tool development and deciding. I think this conversation is good about have we met our goals or not, and the decisions about what tools to work with and how to frame them and how to fund them, that I think is where you guys are really going to show your value to the village. Does that framing help at all, if I just further muddied the conversation?
From my perspective, that's exactly where I'm coming from. And I have to step back because I respect the housing study. I'm not going to cross the housing study and what it says. Plan Commission, I'm not going to touch that either. I understand we are, and that's what I keep coming back to. What is it that we want to do? And then let's figure out a program to wrap around and hit that objective, whatever it is. And if Veridian, and again, I don't mean to pick on Veridian only because it's on the screen here, but if Veridian is not accomplishing what we want to accomplish, what is it that we want to accomplish, and how do we get that implemented? I like the TIF. I like some of the programs that were presented in prior sessions we had. And from my perspective, those are things that are great tools to have. But I also look to, does it bring in the people that we want to come into Wanakee, such that are they here for workforce? Do they then help the local convenience store? Do they help some of the various businesses? Or are we, and I think I kind of took where Ann was coming, are we shooting too high for the housing prices? And is it bringing, at that level, is it bringing in people that will be able to work at the local convenience store? They're going to be outpriced. And my comeback to what Ann was suggesting is, well, maybe and again, I don't mean to pick on Veridian, but maybe there are alternatives to what Veridian is proposing. Maybe we need to look at duplexes, fourplexes, condos within the duplex arena or fourplex. There's some pretty creative housing out there right now. I was driving on Sun Prairie last week, looking at the brand new homes they put up around their huge retail area. There's some pretty creative homes going up in that area. Who's doing it? I don't know, but it's fairly creative, and it's kind of the old European style. And having been in Milwaukee, there's 0 lot lines between the homes. They're kind of like condos. So, and that's why I asked the question, what's the plans for the rest of Veridian, and what else is coming online, and how much leeway do we have? And Jason, as you suggest, we have very little at this point in time. So we have to create something for a developer to come and say, yes, okay, if I do this, it's the old WIIFM, what's in it for me? Okay, if I do this, what are you, village, going to give to me to help me do this particular development?
Okay. Al, I think that was both Al, Jason, thank you for those comments. I think that to both of your points, we need to be very clear with what our role and what our goals are. And I think that we have that. Because this is new and we're tackling something that's not easy. We've talked about this. It's just not an easy task for us to tackle. In doing this, Al, you're bringing up Sun Prairie, and there'll be people in the community that will hear you say Sun Prairie, and they'll say, we don't want to be Sun Prairie, is what they'll say. So we'll have that side of the group. There's absolutely, I think, some options for us out there, and identifying those condominiums and or duplexes. I think we went through a long phase of duplexes in Wanakee. I have duplexes, a lot of duplexes right in my area of the community. There's been several other areas that we haven't had any duplexes put into in the newer subdivisions. So is that something that we want to identify as a potential? I know where Jeff lives, there's a lot of condominiums that are, not a lot, but a fair share of condominiums in that subdivision. So is that going to be the answer? I don't know. Part of I keep coming back to, if we have the opportunity to build whatever it is in Wanakee right now, the people that come to Wanakee don't build small things in general. They just don't. And when they get into the housing that is smaller housing, they change it and do a great job of fixing it up and make the value much higher. And we're very close to running out of that stock of housing. And how do we create that housing again? I don't know how we can do that. We just don't have it. So I'm a little frustrated too, and as I'm listening, because I want to get us to a point where, yeah, we need to have some housing for individuals. Then it goes to, are we going to add more apartments with our 75-25? Are we going to be doing that to make it more affordable? Are we going to look at, maybe there's a price point within the apartments that it's, $800 to $1,200 a month. Are we going to price set? Are we going to try to manipulate the market? What is it that we all have for tools to do? That's what I think our task is, as the CDA is figuring out, as Jason said, the tools to get to the areas that we're lacking right now, without completely changing the character of the community too. That there's going to be a lot of pushback on if we do that. So maybe I'm pontificating, saying the wrong things. I don't know. It's just what I'm hearing from all of you. And what I hear in the community, I want to make sure that with what we're tasked to do, that we accomplish the goals of what were put in front of us from the Housing Task Force, both at the CDA and the village board level. That's the goal.
I bet I know why Jason unmuted. So Al mentioned a development in Sun Prairie or wherever it might be. If it's substantially different than what's been established in the plans in terms of zoning and comprehensive plan land use, we could devise the most creative program in the world. But if the land uses won't accommodate that particular style of development, our work is futile. So is this question in fact punted to the Plan Commission to find out if there will be development areas for alternative approaches? Is that, am I onto something there?
You asking
Tell me
me?
if I'm wrong.
Well,
Jason, go ahead, because I know with regards to our comprehensive plan, you were the one involved with it heavy and intimately. So as Todd's point there, what do we have that?
Well, the plan is set up with a lot of flexibility for accommodating different housing types, and that was by design. We narrowed the range of kind of housing character areas, and so most of the village is neighborhood residential. That was by design. I'm fairly confident that quite a few different formats can be accommodated, and that the Plan Commission, the things that the market is going to bring forward on its own, I think, I don't think Viridian is the last developer that's going to bring forward a mixed unit type, mixed income development. And with you guys not even doing any work at all, the village is going to move closer to these goals, just working with the Plan Commission. Where if I had to pick, if you guys asked me to make a recommendation, I would say focus on that income qualified piece, because I think that's the hardest one, the hardest threshold to get over in this community. You do not have experience with that type of housing. And I will share with you all my ambivalence about the project that's coming forward from Cohen Esri next month. It is income qualified. There are some good aspects of it. It is also 10 pounds of stuff crammed into a 5-pound bag on the lot that it's located. And I have concern, I want you to know that this project could end up sending the wrong message about what income qualified housing is in this community. And so I don't want to taint your view of it. I want you to look at that project when you learn about it with open eyes. But I also want you to be aware that I have some concerns. I think that I would like to see this, and that the CDA involved in figuring out how to do income qualified units well, such that they are accepted in the community. I think the link to the employment needs of local businesses is critical. I think that should always be part of your message coming from the CDA, and that your policy and your efforts and your communications should be figuring out ways to have people welcome that kind of housing.
So I would ask a question, Jason, based on those comments and what we're going to see next month. When Savannah Village was originally platted with 6,700 square foot lots, and the lots sold for about $32,000 to $35,000, the goal at that time was more affordable, smaller houses. The market that just didn't happen. Everybody built as large a lot or large a home as they could on the lot. So what could we have done at that time to ensure, if anything, that those would have remained smaller homes or whatever it would be? Is there something that we have? You said we don't have a stick. Would we have had a stick in that case?
So one of the go-to tools for that development format, so it looks like that, but it has a mechanism to protect affordability, is the land trust. And so that's messing with the market for sure. It's holding the land in a trust and building in mechanisms that prevent owners from taking too much value out of it, and those land trusts can be set up to manage the appreciation of the parcel, and to maintain some income qualifications for buyers. The other thing that could have been done and can be done in new projects is to include attached unit products, so townhomes, for example. You can't overbuild a townhome. It kind of is what it is to some extent. So it's not leaving it up to individual buyers. Townhomes are developed by the developer, and they are what they are. And while they can be improved, they can't really be expanded. So that's another format that could be used to prevent that kind of individual owner decision making that changes the affordability profile.
So then, obviously, that's 20 years ago, roughly, I think. Today's land values, how are we going to fit what you're talking about, even if we went to that type of a model, into the land prices that we have today, short of us subsidizing the land costs?
Well, attached unit housing requires less land, so that's inherently reducing that cost. The land trust model involves subsidy, absolutely involves subsidy. So in that case, someone's putting money on the table to make it happen. So it's a mix. I think the answer is you achieve affordability through a mix of bringing money to bear to pay for affordability, and allowing and or requiring some smaller and attached units that can't be overbuilt in the mix.
Okay, I'm just trying to look at our whole big picture with this, with land costs, but also the land around our community, which has been farmland, some of it very premium farmland that could potentially go away, which concerns me as well. But it's going to be pricey to have that land at this point, and the farmers know that they're going to get that type of pricing because of that. So what I'm trying to get at is that when I said this is a difficult topic for us to address and to dig into, I applaud all of us for being here and trying to do this. And I know that we're going to come through with something. My concern right now is we need to make sure we understand what our role is versus Plan Commission, because the Plan Commissioners also have the same feeling about the CDA and what the CDA's purpose is. So, and Jason and Kristen, you've been at those meetings, you see that. And I think one of our panelists or participants or watchers tonight is one of our Plan Commission members. So they're trying to get a grasp on it as well when you go through this. So I'm not sure where to go right now, Jason and Kristen and Todd. I'm going to probably lean on you guys a little bit here to say where do we want to go with the rest of tonight's meeting? We have about 20 minutes remaining.
Yeah, I think staff is going to take all this input under advisement, and we will consider what the best next steps will be. We're not going to come up with that right now, I don't think.
And by the way, I'm just showing my frustration a little bit, not with any of you. It's just this is such a difficult topic, and I feel like right now the way you may all be feeling, which spinning in the mud a little bit, trying to get somewhere that we don't necessarily know which way we want to go out of the mud. So, Ann, you've got your hand up. Go ahead.
So I believe the CDA was created in response to the recommendation of Kurt Paulson when he said that Middleton actually had a separate subcommittee of their planning commission that addressed affordability. And maybe one thing that would help us all out a little bit and really get back to prioritization, which is the very last one that we say is completed, but really to kind of understand, maybe touch base with Middleton and understand more exactly how that subcommittee functions in terms of how it interacts with their common council, because they're a city, and their planning commission. And so bring that back to us so that we have better information on the model that I sort of thought we were following. Maybe I'm wrong.
Jeff, hand up, go ahead.
Yeah, I agree with you, Ann, but I also agree with all of the conversation, Jason, Al, and some of the questions that Chris raised. I think we're going to need that information, but we need and Todd, I don't know if this goes back to you and your team to lay out the board, the plan commission, our roles, and so everybody really understands what what our role is. I mean, we need a charter for us. And know what our boundaries are and know what value we can add. I'm not going to come to these meetings if I don't think we're going to be able to add value. And I've, you're all respected people also, and I think you're going to feel the same way. And in order to be able to do that for me, I need to see a path. What is our accountability? What is our mission? And where do we have input within this whole process of a development actually getting built or housing being provided? What is our value that we're going to add to that step? And you've raised an excellent point with Middleton. Maybe they've got that model, but I really think that's critical work for us ahead of any prioritization of housing task force information.
So can I just add a point of order in when we discussed transforming the Economic Development Committee into the Community Development Authority, I don't believe, and Chris, correct me if I'm wrong, and Todd, correct me if I'm wrong, that we were doing it in order to mimic Middleton's committee structure. They're a city, we're a village, there are a lot of other things that we do very differently, but specifically because housing, workforce, business growth, retention are all kind of fit under a broader umbrella of community development, not just economic development, and they're pieces of a whole. And that we weren't, although we are addressing this isn't our sole responsibility. That's my understanding though. So Chris and Todd, I'm going to ask you to respond, and maybe I've got it wrong.
Well, no, I kind of agree. I mean, we did the charter of sorts is specifically laid out in the resolution that created the CDA. So that does exist. And admittedly, it's limited in the way in which it's limited to the specific tasks that the village board calls to be addressed by the CDA. The CDA isn't given independent authority to spend a dime unless the board tells it to spend a dime on X, Y, or Z. So this is a part of it's part of the funnel, essentially. I would say, I think to Kristen's point, I similarly bristle when I hear just because Community X has a committee like this, we should consider it too. The parameters in Middleton's ability to attract and afford resources that makes affordable housing very meaningful there is a different set of conditions than we have here. It's very different. So I will definitely reach out to Middleton and find out what they do. But I think we also have to talk about communities that are more, frankly, more like us.
I want to be clear. I'm not suggesting that we do everything that Middleton is doing, because obviously that's not going to be appropriate for us. However, Middleton does have a structure where they have a group of people like ourselves who are tasked with understanding and trying to negotiate these challenges. And then my understanding is that then goes to the Planning Commission and then to the Common Council. So obviously they have parameters and guidance on how their subcommittee, which we might look like, we might not, works with their Planning Commission. And so hopefully we can take that and pitch that to the Planning Commission and also the village board, so we can all make sure that we are working together to advance these goals, rather than feeling like maybe we're playing tug of war or stepping on each other's toes at all.
Okay, well, I can definitely research what it is that they do, and maybe there's other models that I can find out more about too, and come back and inform you.
Okay, thank you. That's all I'm asking for.
David, you've been kind of quiet up there this evening. Do you have any comments in regards to all this?
I do. I'm a little puzzled by the $125,000 a year number, because if you look at that, I thought one of the concepts was that we needed to find more affordable housing so that people who work in Wanakee can live here. Well, if you take 2,080 hours, which is 40 hours a week for 52 weeks, times 2, 4,160, divide that into the 125, that's 2 people in a household making $30 an hour. Do we have that kind of job in this marketplace? I mean, Jeff, you can comment a little bit on that, but I think that's at the 125 number, we're saying we're gonna build more housing like we already have that people can't afford. What's the magic number? I think 125 is certainly too high of a target for us if we're talking about building housing or finding a way to build housing so that people who work here can afford to live here. And like I said, I'm at $30 an hour for two people in a household, or a 40-20, you can do the math any way you want to. But if you're looking to, we started out looking for housing at a lower level economically so that the workers could find it. And we're just at the 125, we're building more of the same, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I'm right with you on that, David. I mean, you're hitting it on the head, because you're not even taking into account, in my opinion, there's a lot more to it than that, because we have the kids coming out of college that don't have the ability to pay, or their parents didn't pay for them, with an $800 and $900 a month payment towards those student loans. Then you throw in your house and your car and all the different things that go with it. So it's really not, that 125,000 is probably not even indicative of what really is needed at this point for our younger people coming into the community. Sure, there's going to be some that are going to have opportunities that they make a very good living and do well. But to your point, our grocery stores and our convenience stores, to our CNAs with Jeff, I mean, they're not making $30, $40 an hour for those businesses, because those businesses would then have to turn around and charge our seniors, in that case, Jeff, this much more to be able to stay there, which the seniors can't afford. So we have this large picture of what we're dealing with there. So the housing component of this, it's not just Wanakee, and that's when I talked about maybe we can be the leaders here. This is a problem that's out there, and with the pandemic right now, with daycare and those things coming with it, that there's even more pressure into the system right now, from where I see things. So it's important that we do our work, and I'm going to get with Todd probably tomorrow, Todd, that we can map out a very clear plan for our CDA on what we need to get accomplished, and then that path forward. To Jeff's point, we all are busy people. We're all professional people that have lives and other things we're doing too. In addition to, Kristen and I with board responsibilities, committees, other things that we're doing within the village, we need to have a very clear direction. And I think that we can do a better job of addressing that. Jason, you probably would want to be in on that conversation as well tomorrow if we have a chance. So we're going to finish a little early tonight. I think we're at a good stopping point here. I think everybody's weighed in, unless somebody needs to weigh in still additionally. But I think that's the way we should proceed right now, unless somebody disagrees. If somebody else thinks that I'm crazy, and there's people out there, I know you're shocked, that think I might be a little crazy, that could be the case. But
I don't think you're crazy, but could I offer a suggestion?
Yes.
We've gotten stuck for month after month after month on ratifying things that are in the housing report.
Yep.
We, next meeting, just skip around that and look at, regardless of whether we think it should be 100 or 125, we all agree that we need more affordable housing. That could we look at some of the methods, the forms that Jason suggested? What would that look like in the village? And regardless of whether we're believing it's 100 or 125, what does that look like? What do those price points come out to right now? Are these forms that we think we could find places for? I mean, just jump over that and get to what are some of maybe the solutions, and maybe we come back to that afterwards, but.
I think you're hitting it right on the head, Kristen, and that's what the conversation is going to be tomorrow.
All right, awesome.
If
And the second thing too,
Yep.
we have a bias as a group, and we have a bias as a community towards ownership. And that's not always the right solution for different types of households. So when we're thinking of that and we're focusing on Viridian providing home ownership solutions, let's also make sure we're thinking of our non-homeowners that we need to provide for too. And with that, I will not say anything else for the rest of the meeting.
I love that. I actually would challenge probably Todd. I can put this on you, and you can put Kylie on it. How many houses we have for rent in Wanakee? I would doubt it's very, very many for individuals that would want to rent a house. Which then comes another story of out-of-state ownership of those homes and the upkeep of them and all the different things that go with that. So again, thank you guys first off for bearing with us. And I know this is frustrating to you as it has been for me too, but we're going to have a much better direction next month. Okay?
Hey, Chris,
Yes, Al.
just a quick question. And I know Todd's computer is about out of battery juice because I saw his little thing at the bottom there. So I know he's got to end pretty quick.
I plugged it in, but I do have another meeting at 7:30.
Okay, and should we summarize some of the things we've already talked about or had presentations on, some of the programs? And should we start talking about whether or not we think those programs should be implemented within Wanakee?
Yeah, I like that idea. Let's put that as one of the things we'll address next time too. Okay, well, I want to get clear direction on everything we're going to go to try to accomplish right now, based on what Kristen's point was before. It's more than just housing that we're going to be directed to do by the board. This is our task right now. So we just need to get this honed in. So I'll take responsibility for that.
Can I ask you for a specific item? Item number 8 talks about different forms and all of that. That can really get into zoning, which again is going to depend on if you want us to do that or if that really needs to rest with the Planning Commission. So again, just asking for clarification. What types of things, what solutions do you want us to look at, and what things should be going, sort of directly to the plan?
Okay.
Well, I agree with, and I tried to say that before, Ann, you said it so much more succinctly, is that this isn't just defining our role, it's defining how do the three bodies that perhaps influence us operate together, and who's, what is it going to be advisory? Is it going to be, do we have authority? Any authorities in our name? Do we have any authority? But that's what needs to be defined, and how are we going to relate to the Plan Commission and therefore any outcomes that happen. I think that's a piece of that discussion that ought to happen over the next couple of weeks.
Okay, sounds good. All right, so Kristen, do you want to join Todd and Jason when I have this conversation? Okay, so we will put that together and come back prepared for next month. Sound good, everybody? I appreciate you guys. All right, thumbs up. Let's have one motion then. Who wants to make it? It's Dr. Random's favorite motion of the night every time. Which one is it?
I'll make a motion to adjourn the
Motion to adjourn by Ann. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Aldassel. Okay.
And just I think Kylie's going to take this and turn it into notes. So that motion was at 7:26 p.m.
Okay. If you're in agreement, raise your hand. All right. Thank you, everyone. Have a great rest of your night. Appreciate it.
Night.
Happy birthday, Kristen. A day late.
Thank you.
Okay.